Are we watching the Federal Reserve Chairman single-handedly destroy the tech industry? Over 500,000 tech workers have lost their jobs since 2022, with 9,500 more laid off in just 2024 alone. But here's what nobody's talking about. Jerome Powell keeping interest rate at their highest sustained level in 25 years, maintaining them at over 4.25% to 4.5% for 5 consecutive meetings. While everyone blames AI for killing tech jobs, the real culprit is sitting right in front of us. Historically high borrowing costs are strangling innovation and forcing mass layoffs. The question isn't whether Powell is incompetent, it's whether his moves are politically motivated to damage the economy under Trump. So today I want to dive into ways that Jerome Powell's monetary policy is systematically destroying the IT sector. Let's jump into this today. Welcome to Startup Hack. I'm Spencer, and here at Startup Hack, we love to train software developers as well as build custom software solutions for companies. With over a decade of executive leadership and 25 years of software development, I've mastered transforming tech teams and products. All right, so Powell's September 2024 rate cut, a blatant 0.5% reduction just weeks before the election, proves that his decisions are politically motivated. Even Trump called out Powell, saying that Powell lowered it in order to help sleepy Joe Biden and later Kamala to get elected. Now, under Trump, Powell has refused to cut rates despite mounting evidence that high interest rates are destroying tech companies faster than AI disruptions. Now, there's not a whole lot to laugh about here, guys. I subscribe to a lot of different job letters because I work in the job industry. I hire a lot of developers. We have our registered apprentice programs. And so I subscribe to a lot of these. And I want to share with you a part of this newsletter here. Let me get switched over here to my other monitor. And I want to share with you this newsletter here that I got. This is part of a newsletter from one of them. And I thought this was really interesting. He said, speaking of last Friday's job report, showed the most precipitous downward revision to employment growth since the onset of COVID, according to Bloomberg. Non-farm payrolls were revised lower by 260,000 jobs in May and June combined by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, according to last Friday's July employment report. To make matters worse, new hires rose by a much lower than estimated 73,000 jobs in July. And recalculation brought average hiring over the last 3 months to just 35,000, the slowest pace since the start of COVID. As a result, those already unemployed now find themselves in an even worse position. Now, this isn't just about tech. This is actually about everybody. So I want to remind you that this isn't just, this is obviously affecting tech. It's affecting everybody. As a result, those already unemployed now find themselves in an even worse position. The number of Americans without work for 27 weeks or more has increased to the highest level since 2017 at 1.8 million, with 25% of all unemployed workers being out of jobs for 27 plus week, a level not seen since 2016. So what's causing the slowdown in hiring? A myriad of issues, not the least of which are employers facing major economic confusion due to tariff stuff, right? And corresponding interest rate uncertainty. They're waiting for these rates to drop. As a result, companies are holding off on hiring until they get more fiscal clarity. Plus, AI has appeared to play a role, with big companies such as Bank of America saying it's using AIs in ways to reduce hiring needs. As such, we're experiencing one of the worst job markets ever, and now the stats are proving that the active job seekers have been saying for quite some time now, this is the toughest market they've ever seen. Now, I know I've had a lot of people report that they've been out of work on, in my comments and everything. And again, the best thing that I can encourage people who are out of work to do is really to skill down, right? To get into your skills, is particularly around AI right now. Every single hire, like you just heard about Bank of America, every single hiring person out there right now is wanting AI skills. So whether it's learning how to use AI, whether it's learning how to program against it, pretty much if it's going to be anything, you're going to want to go into a job interview saying you know how to use AI. Now, what I want to dive into today is kind of talk about where my opinion is that we have seen one of the worst interest rates that we've seen in 25 years. So current Fed rates of 4.25 to 4.5 aren't the highest, but it represents the highest sustained level since 2007, maintaining through 5 consecutive meetings in 2025. So when you see this much job hit, when you're seeing inflation at one of the all-time low for a long time, definitely one of the lowest we've seen in over a decade, and when you see all of this, why is Powell not slashing rates, right? It's really starting to hit, and especially in the tech industry. I keep hearing everybody telling me that it is AI that's stealing jobs, but it's not. it's actually these high interest rate costs, and I'm going to go through that. So when you average the quarterly rate levels over time, we haven't seen this high of a rate in the past 25 years. Historical data shows that rates are slashed. Let me go back to my monitor here and show this again. Hopefully, let me get my head out of the way. So, we definitely have seen higher peaks over, this is a 25-year graph. So we've definitely seen higher peaks, but that's the thing. They were peaks and then they dropped. Our sustained rates around 2008, leading into the 2008 bubble, was definitely something. But then we're seeing this longer sustained, right? This period where we see above 4% here for the longest period of time with no indication of drop here. This is what I'm talking about. This length of time that we see it sit up there at the top. We've really, the tech industry has really boomed since the market crashed in 2008 because it's been the benefactor of all these low interest rates. And, interest rates are, these are one of the reasons that we're seeing this struggle in tech right now, right? These elevated rates force tech companies to service expensive debt instead of investing in innovation and growth. And let me state that again, right? Instead of paying for innovation and growth, because innovation and growth are super expensive, they're having to pay debt. And that's one of the big problems we're seeing. So Powell's refusal to acknowledge this historical context shows either incompetence or deliberate economic sabotage. Now, after a long time building software companies, I've never seen such sustained monetary policy assault on the tech sector so hard. Now, in September of 2024, the rate cuts of 0.5% came just 50 days before the presidential election. It was the only time that Powell has budged this, right? And so despite Powell claiming that the Fed doesn't consider politics, that was a blatant spit of the face of this context. Critics immediately called out the timing, with Republicans saying it was designed to help Kamala Harris and Biden campaign. Trump explicitly has stated this. Now, under Trump, Powell has refused to commit to rate cuts despite two of his own governors dissenting for cuts. And this is really uncommon. But for the first time since 1993, two Fed governors voted against Powell's decision. Now, they were both Trump appointees, so I'm going to give it that. But they're the ones speaking the obvious here, that these rates have been high for too long and are starting to force an actual, not just recession, but into a depression. Now, I understand that GDP is high, and so everybody's going to start screaming at me that we're not in a recession. I get all of that. But what I'm going to tell you is these high interest rates make borrowing really expensive for these tech companies, and that's the reason why we're seeing so much devastation in the tech area. Over 542 tech companies laid off 151,000 employees in 2024, following a devastating 200,000 plus layoffs in 2023. So we're seeing back-to-back years of crazy high layoffs. The root cause isn't AI disruption, as much as many people are blaming it that. It's the tech companies were operating and expanding through credit, borrowed money that became prohibitively expensive. So Roger Lee from layoffs.fyi identifies that, quote, interest rate hike effects started in mid-2022 as the primary driver of current rate cuts. So let's go back to this again. When did the interest rate, or when did layoffs start? Pretty much the second they started running here. Now, if you'll notice, interest rates were very slow decline, slow increase here over 2-year period. Here, saw an increased rate over almost 4-year period, right? What did we see here? We went from 0 to one of the highest interest rates in less than a year, right? And then sustain longer than we've seen it sustain. So this is what I'm talking about when I say, and so this is the reason why this sharp incline that we see here is the reason we saw so much layoff and have seen so much layoffs over the last couple of years. Now, major companies like Dell laid off 12,000 employees. Intel's laid off a bunch of employees. We're going to blame interest rates in this video, but there's a whole lot of other reasons too that we've definitely talked about. But Amazon has also cited cost reduction needed because of the high borrowing cost. So high interest rates creates investor pressures for cost cutting over growth, which devastates employees in our industry. Now, Powell stated, quote, we've made no decisions about September, end quote, when asked about the rate cut, showing complete disconnect from the economic reality. His claim that tariff effects should be short-lived or more persistent reveals that he's using trade policy as an excuse to maintain these high interest rates, but it's obviously politically motivated. Powell described the economy as solid while ignoring the tech sector's bloodbath happening right under this monetary policy. And not only that, these kind of jobs, like I just read to you from this job report here that we're seeing these devastating job reports. And this is not just tech, but it's definitely hitting tech one of the hardest, because tech is about innovation, and innovation costs a lot. So his comments that rates are moderately restrictive when they're at a 25-year high shows his complete tone deafness. Powell's July statement proves he's either completely incompetent or deliberately damaging the economy. Now, if your company has systems that aren't connected, let us help you out, because here at Startup Hack, our specialty is connecting systems to help your company work like a well-oiled machine. So check out startuphack.com/Spencer, because we'd love to help you out. Now, high interest rates have created a venture capital funding crisis, with startups running out of cash and facing fundraising struggles. The era of easy money is long over, forcing venture-backed startups to cut jobs as a way to quote, as a way to cut costs and preserve their cash reserves, end quote. So tech companies can no longer rely on cheap credit for expansion, forcing a strategic shift towards AI investment while cutting traditional roles. Investors are demanding companies, quote, decrease expenses as revenues slow down, end quote. That was a quote from a VC. Specifically because of higher borrowing costs. So companies in the past are permanently shutting down due to high interest rates and economic uncertainties. And that's from two different companies, one named Level and one named Brave Care, who specifically both listed high interest rates as the reason why they're shutting down. So Powell's monetary policy has essentially cut off the lifeblood of tech innovation. Now, fintech startups are abruptly shutting down, with founders citing unsuccessful attempts to find buyers due to high borrowing costs. Solar industry companies conducted their fourth layoffs round since January 2024. There's a lot of different tech companies that are getting hit in this space. So between 2022 and 2024, more than 500,000 tech workers were laid off, with Microsoft cutting 10,000, Amazon cutting 27,000, and Meta cutting 11,000. Now, Stanford professor Jeffrey Pfeffer, I think is how you say his name, calls this copycat layoffs, where companies imitate each other's cost cutting due to investor pressure. The focus has shifted from growth to, one, survivability for startups, and two, profitability for enterprises due to the expensive credit. Nobody can afford to invest in growth right now. Even profitable companies like Google and Microsoft face backlash from investors saying their headcount was too high. So recent cuts included HP laying off 2,000 workers and Microsoft eliminating another 6,000 positions, nearly 3% of its workforces. So Powell's high interest rate environment has turned tech leaders into cost cutters instead of innovators. So high interest rates means that it became expensive for tech companies to pay back loans, forcing them to abandon growth initiatives. Companies are reporting steep drops in share prices, with firms like Intel posting $1.6 billion in loss. Now, I think some of that is because of leadership, so I'm definitely going to play a little devil's advocate on myself here. But the Fed policy is not helping them. Many are reallocating resources towards burgeoning field of artificial intelligence, because this is an area where they can find venture-backed capital, right? VCs are worried that profits will be down this year after the large growth period due to high borrowing costs. So that's their problem, is a lot of times venture capital will come in and get backed by debt. The chance of getting backed by debt right now is really low because of these high costs. And so that's really hurting us. So the U.S. tech industry accounts for about 8.9 million people in the total workforce. So it's almost 9 million people, according to CompTIA's data, of where the tech industry is. Now, overall unemployment remains low at 4.2%, but tech layoffs have declined, right? So I think we're finally starting to see some of the end of the bloodbath of layoffs, but the hiring isn't coming back, and that's part of the problem. And a lot of people are blaming AI, but I'm telling you, interest rates have done more damage to this than AI has, because I'm going to go into it more, but I'm telling you, AI has changed effectiveness of developers by about 20%. And anybody who argues any different, I've got a whole video we're going to be making here tomorrow all about that. So stay tuned, because I promise I've got numbers to back it up, and more than one. But with mortgage rates remaining elevated around almost 7% compared to 4.2% in March of 2022. So again, that's a 4.25% to almost 7%. That's a huge jump in just 3 years. Current consensus among housing economists is that 30-year mortgage rates could remain above 6.5% for the rest of the year. And this is because Powell is refusing to move the needle. And he could. That's the hard part. He could absolutely move this. And there's many, many people many intelligent people calling for this to be the case. So the ripple effects of Powell's rate policies are destroying the entire tech ecosystem infrastructure. Two Fed governors, both Trump appointees, I will say, but dissented for the rate cuts. They were screaming for Powell to do rate cuts, and it's really uncommon to see these guys break ranks and go out publicly, but they did. Trump correctly argues that there's virtually no inflation, and Powell is being too late with necessary cuts, and I couldn't agree more. Business leaders like Grant Cardone are calling Powell's policies harmful to regular people and the broader economy, and that is what hurting. So if you're hurting for a job right now, you can thank Jerome Powell. His Fed policy is way overbearing, and economist predicts that the Fed, quote, will likely wait until September to deliver the next 25-point basis cut. And even that, they're going to probably deliver months after. So if we see any cuts this year, it's going to be 0.25% toward the end of the year. So it's clear that anything other than aggressive rate cuts is a political sabotage of American tech leadership and really a harm to you. So unfortunately, the Feds get to play God on this, and there's not a whole lot that we can do. We're at their mercy. And I think this is pretty messed up. What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'd love to have a great conversation. So as always, please leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts here. Here at Startup Hack, we love to train software developers as well as to build custom software solutions for companies. And here's some great information about our services.
Hi, I'm Spencer, a fractional CTO. With over a decade of executive leadership and 25 years in software development, I've transformed technology teams and products for businesses just like yours. As your fractional CTO, you get the strategic guidance of a seasoned technology executive without the full-time commitment. Perfect for companies ready to leverage cutting-edge technology without expanding headcount. My team at Startup Hack has already built advanced AI agents for small and medium businesses, automating complex workflows and delivering advanced ROI to human workflows. We specialize in creating custom software that connects your systems into a single coherent technology ecosystem. Our development approach focuses on tangible business outcomes. For one client, we developed AI-powered workflows that cut days off of human processes. For another company, by connecting multiple systems, we reduced processing time to increase their ROI by over 75%. We don't just write code, we architect solutions that scale. Whether you need cloud system architecture, data integration between legacy systems, or custom AI agents that automate your unique business processes, my team delivers results that exceed your expectations. Having led technology for a lot of companies and launched 7 successful brands of my own, I bring battle-tested expertise to your business challenges. Our specialty is turning technological complexity into business advantage. So if you're ready to harness the power of AI and custom software to drive your business forward, let's connect. Together, we'll build technology that doesn't just solve today's problems, it positions you for tomorrow's opportunities. Technology leadership, decades of experience, AI powered. Reach out today and we can help you. Check out startuphack.com/Spencer.